We'll start with a veteran because Finance Minister designate Dr. Forson has vowed to abolish the e-levy and the veteran tax in the government's first budget if his nomination is approved. He described both taxes as barriers to economic growth during his vetting on Monday during his vetting. Now, Dr. Forson emphasized that the e-levy discourages digital transactions, undermining the nation's move towards a cashless economy, while the veteran tax contributes negligible revenue. Energy Minister designate John Jinapo and Attorney General designate Dominic Nitu Ayine also appeared before the appointment committee for their vetting. Nia Ayikwe Okain reports.
The Appointments Committee of the 9th Parliament, chaired by the First Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, had its first sitting on Monday to consider the nomination of some 3 persons as ministers designate for the Ministry of Finance, Energy, and the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice. Now, the first to begin the vetting was the Minister designate for Finance, Dr. Forson, and he indicated that the government plans to remove the veteran tax as well as the e-levy in its first budget.
The tax will not solve the problem. Here we are today, have been vindicated. Has the tax solved the problem as intended by the government? Big no. I insist that that tax must be abolished. And as Minister of Finance, my first budget, I will abolish the veteran tax. The Chairman, the e-levy is neither a direct tax, indirect tax, or an excise tax. I don't know how to classify the e-levy as a tax practitioner. Mr. Chairman, it doesn't mean that I do not recognize that the e-levy brings in certain revenue. But the fact remains that the e-levy retards our progress towards a cash-light economy and the fintech. We need to abolish the e-levy. I have said, and I'm on record to have said, that given the opportunity to abolish the e-levy, I want to restate that position, that if approved as part of the first budget, I'll be privileged and I will announce that we will abolish the e-levy as part of our first budget.
He also outlined some key priorities that he would consider if approved by the House, and this includes ensuring stability of the exchange rate, low prices, and also bringing down inflation and ensuring job creation.
My priority as a minister will be low prices, stable city, and jobs. Low prices in the sense that today inflation is 28.3, food inflation is 27.8, and we know the inflation we see today is largely driven with food inflation. What do we do? As a minister, I will allocate resources in consultation with Cabinet to government policy of agriculture for economic transformation to make food cheaper. And we'll work with the minister responsible for agric to make food cheaper. That in itself will help make food available and protect food security. From the price side, you can't talk about price without inflation. I mean, inflation needs to be tamed. It has been stubborn. I've said it earlier. It has, in the last 8 months, you can see that we're still seeing some uptick, even though not too steep. But it has been 23.8. Today, that's the inflation rate. What do we do together to reduce this inflation? Yes, I've said it here and I want to say it again. We will work with the Bank of Ghana to reduce inflation to 8% plus or minus 2 in the shortest possible time. And how do we do this? From the fiscal side, we will front load fiscal consolidation in the shortest possible time so that we can get inflation down. And in doing so, we'll see prices stabilizing. The city needs to be anchored and has to be anchored from the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana. You can't leave the Bank of Ghana alone to anchor the city. The fiscal authorities has a role to play. I'll work with them. I will work and coordinate effectively with the central bank, the monetary authorities, so that together we can anchor the currency. Monetary financing must be eliminated. We'll work to eliminate it. I'm on record to have spoken against monetary financing. my position has not changed. It's economist, and it still remains economist. And I will do exactly what it is to make sure we anchor the currency. On jobs, I've said it all. I've said it here that my responsibility as a minister responsible for finance is to raise the required revenue and to allocate it in consultation with cabinet to sectors that will create the jobs. And so we will do just that. And I want to repeat that. These are my priorities as a minister, and we'll work to achieve that in the shortest possible time. I want to be remembered as the one who helped to reduce prices and stabilize the currency and create jobs. That is what I ask God to help me to achieve.
The minister designate for the Ministry of Energy, John Jinapo, was the next person to take the seat, and he also disclosed plans by the government to privatize sections of the Electricity Company of Ghana to ensure efficiency.
We believe there should be a private sector participation. What we intend to do is to form a 7-member committee chaired by technical experts, legal experts, financial experts, and some industry players, and even somebody from the consumer side. What we want them to do is to get us a framework, looking at best practices. Would the concession approach work or a full privatization work? We will stay off as politicians, let them get the framework in a more transparent, open, frank manner. Then when we get the buy-in of Ghanaians, then we can set the standards using an RFQ, an RFP, and then a competitive tender process. Let me make this clear. We are not going to do sole sourcing when it comes to the ECG private sector participation. Competitive tender process with some element of private sector participation using local content, and then we set the KPIs.
John Jinapo also outlined some measures the government intends to roll out to ensure that the power situation is stabilized.
The first problem we need to address is the issue of fuel. Fuel supply is a major problem confronting the sector. Currently, we have a deficit of about 40 to 60 mm of gas. If you take the gas from ENI, gas from Jubilee 10, and then gas from N-gas, and you put all together, you still have a deficit. And so you have to be depending on some level of light crude oil, some level of heavy fuel oil, and some level of distillate fuel oil. Our immediate objective will be to bridge that gap. We've met Jubilee partners, we've spoken to the partners and the operators, Talo, we've also spoken to Ghana Gas. They are currently doing 100 mm SCAF. We are confident that if they do some reconditioning, they can increase it to about 35 more, and that will give us a lot of buffer.
During the committee's sitting, the minority leader, Alexander Apenyomarkin, reiterated the need for the President, John Dramani Mahama, to release the full list of his appointees to ensure that the committee vets them accordingly. For Channel One News from Parliament, Ni Ayukwe Okain.